of this was decided.
You really think you can change the future?
All of this was decided.
The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear.
Good tidings, ladies and gentlemen of the Lodge, and welcome back. Today it's time we talk about the Master of Masters yet again. But this time, we aren't talking about his identity, we aren't talking about his backstory, we are talking about the flaw in the Master's logic. I believe while the Master's plan is obviously very thorough, I think there is a gaping hole in his logic that I believe will be exploited by a certain lineage. With that said, allow us to take a closer look at this flaw in the Master's logic that I believe will be exploited by the Guardians, or more specifically, a certain lineage. But with that said, allow us to take a closer look at the Master of Masters, his plan, his logic, and the major flaw in what he has in store. So first things first, allow us to establish a cornerstone to the Master's plan, the Gazing Eye.
It's not what it's called.
The Gazing Eye was handed off to Luxu and was entrusted to him to pass down to his apprentice, and then his apprentice on to another, and so on and so forth. All of this with the intent and purpose that the Master's Eye can see the future and thus will allow him to write the Book of Prophecies, giving him an edge against the Guardians, Darkness, Dandelions, or whoever else may stand in his way. We know that to some degree this mission of Luxu's was successful, as it has resulted in the existence of the Book of Prophecies. Now, keeping all of that in mind, let us move over to this scene. During this scene, we get the famous line from the Master himself, which has resulted in a ton of Kingdom Hearts theories and speculation.
The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear.
Ah, yes. The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear. A convenient thing for a man whose plan is banking on what his own eye sees being passed down through time. A man whose plan is dependent on the sights and battles that will be witnessed by the no-name Keyblade and its Gazing Eye. However, I can think of one man who thinks very differently from the Master.
Perhaps, but unlike darkness, there's more to light than meets the eye. But a game's no fun if you know where it's going. There's more to light than meets the eye. I told you.
There's more to light than meets the eye. This phrase by Eraqus stands in stark contrast to the words of the Master of Masters. If the truth is what you see with your eyes, but there's more to light than meets the eye, then there's always going to be a degree of truth that will be hidden from one who thinks like the Master of Masters. It certainly pulled the wool over Xehanort's eyes. But for those who believe that this may be a coincidence, allow me to point out something that may change your mind. It is absolutely no accident that Eraqus was the one to say this line. The reason I say that is because our man Eraqus here is a descendant of Brain, and Brain made it his mission to be the virus in the Master system, a system which was depending on what his eye could see. With his descendant Eraqus touting that there's more to light than meets the eye, it leads me to believe that their connection to the situation is all the more plausible. For our next piece of evidence, I actually want to examine a little bit of what's going on in Eraqus' head. So I'm going to play a couple scenes and lines of dialogue now that'll show you that not only did Eraqus know about the Lost Masters, even though he's playing dumb, he is the one who symbolically initiates the game that is the Lost Masters arc. And ask yourself, why Eraqus?
So, you know the Lost Masters? Who? They're the ones who started the Keyblade War. Never heard of them. Where'd you hear about that? Or, they're the ones for whom the war started. I'm not following you. You can drop the facade. What's this? I heard about this new game. Seven black pieces, and? Just watch.
So again, considering that Eraqus obviously knew about the Lost Masters, and the fact that he's the one to initiate the game that's symbolic of the Lost Master arc, we have to consider that it's very possible that he may have some influence on the events that are bound to transpire. To what degree remains to be seen. Should that still not be enough to sway you, allow me to throw one more piece of evidence on your plate. Let's take this one back all the way to the first Missing Link trailer, showing off this version of Scala ad Caelum. A Scala ad Caelum where Brain dwells, by the way. Curiously enough, we learned in this trailer that this particular era of Scala would be known as the Unwritten Era. From the time we first saw the trailer and we learned this, I was immediately drawn to this character placing their hand over what appeared to be a hollowed out gazing eye. Perhaps there is some trick of the light at play that will prevent this eye from transmitting this era to the Master and thereby the Book of Prophecies. This idea that counters the Master's philosophy that the truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear. This idea that there is more to light than meets the eye that comes from Eraqus, but very well may be passed down from Brain, fits into this potential paradigm where Brain is trying to find ways to usurp the Master's plan and the system he's created. With the Master's plan being so dependent on the sights of the gazing eye, perhaps Brain and anyone collaborated with him found a way for the light to bypass the gazing eye, providing some kind of advantage against the Master of Masters and his plan. There's no telling what kind of plans Brain has brought into fruition with his time spent in Scala ad Caelum. As far as that story beat goes, only time will tell. But we cannot downplay this new saga's focus on bloodlines, and that the bloodline connection between Eraqus and Brain was one of the first bloodline connections the series confirmed ever since the idea was first introduced. So taking note that on top of everything discussed today, it seems plausible to me that the flaw in the Master's plan may be something that's passed down through Keyblade generations. So let's quickly summarize our main points in this video before we wrap up. Point number 1. The Master puts his gazing eye into the no-name Keyblade so that he can see the future and write the Book of Prophecies. Point number 2. The Master is reliant on the gazing eye in order to transmit that future to the Book of Prophecies, which he writes. Point number 3. Luxu's mission is a success, evidenced by the existence of the Book of Prophecies. Point 4. The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear. Point number 5. There is more to light than meets the eye. Point 6. Eraqus is a descendant of Brain. Point 7. Brain wants to be or create the virus in the Master System. And point number 8. Brain goes to a Scala that will become known as the Unwritten Era. And last, but most certainly not least, Eraqus knows about the Lost Masters and initiates a quote-unquote new game. This is of course further reinforced by the fact that the black pieces that he sets up on the other side of the board are representative of the foretellers, or what is inferred to be the Lost Masters. Again, when we put all of this together, it certainly raises some eyebrows and paints a clear picture of how Brain, Eraqus, and perhaps that entire bloodline have concocted a generation-wide plan to usurp the Master's gazing eye in any way they can. Given that the Master's plan is so dependent on what he sees with his eyes and not what he hears, that allows for those who wish to combat his plan to use that logic against him. But with all of that said, dearest viewer, I want to know what you think. Do you find this theory plausible? Do you think that Eraqus' statement that there is more to light than meets the eye stands in stark contrast to the Master's philosophy that the truth is what you see with your eyes and not what you hear? Anyway, I'm excited to see what you all think. Make sure you drop in the comment section below. Subscribe if you haven't already. You sickos and normies, be good out there. Be good to yourselves and each other. And I leave all of you beautiful sickos and normies with one last scene.
Maybe I won't go as far as you.
Huh?
When the world needs a defender, they'll pick you, Eraqus.
All of this was decided.
You really think you can change the future?
All of this was decided.
The truth is what you see with your eyes, not what you hear.
All of this was decided.
Why not just sit back and watch it play out?
All of this was decided.
May your heart be your guiding key.
Who are